Hey kids, this is Mrs. Gardner, and I'm back with second video about starting our self-portrait. This is from the first video where we did our measurements, measuring the top of our skull to the tip of our chin, and then we took measurements to measure the width of our face, like where your cheekbones are is basically the widest part. And then once we marked those measurements to get a realistic kind of size for our face, we then kind of made a little vertical axis, made a little horizontal axis to go by, and then basically drew our shape of the face in. For mine, it was kind of egg-shaped, as you see. This is just kind of a little cheat sheet where I have a version of me that is smaller than life size, but it does give you kind of a goal and what to go by, and kind of compared to our proportions and measurements we're going by. This is from our last week's notes, where we had to sketch some basic proportions, and it looks very robotic because we have a lot of measurements happening here that we're going to borrow from today. And so you see that I drew my egg shape, and I will say that what would probably help is to actually kind of give this a little bit more of a popped out light bulbish type of curve instead of just letting it cave in a little bit too much. That's real common to make it a little bit too constricted on the sides. Now don't worry if you have some jaw lines that aren't shown, we can always pop that out later. So we're going to place some basic features. You may notice here we have the eyes, which is the main features of the face that you would normally look at. And a common mistake would be to put the eyes too close or too far. So think of it as having the size of the eye from the inner corner to the outer corner, that size, placed in between your two eyes. So it's almost like a third eye of space in between. So the way I'm going to start is I'm going to put a little circle to represent kind of the pupil of the eye. That's going to rest right on this center horizontal line, this horizontal axis. It's going to look really odd, and it's going to look like I'm putting my eyes way too low, but honestly this is pretty generic in proportions of that your eye line is kind of about halfway down your face, okay? But really they're kind of just going to be building upon above this horizontal axis. Now I'm going to draw a little darker because I know you're probably having trouble seeing this, so I'm going to sketch a little darker than I normally would. So little circles representing the pupils. Now I can always adjust this later, not a problem. So you sketch lighter at home. I'm putting an arch above, like an arced kind of curved line above, okay, to kind of represent the top of the eye, kind of generic right now. And notice that if I go from the inner corner of this eye to the inner corner of this eye, approximately an eye's width. Okay, boom, 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 like that. So let's kind of get that started. Don't worry if it's not just like you or anything like that. We're just using ourselves as a reference because you see yourself most often, of course. Now, if you're wanting to do some basic proportions, one proportion we did mention, like on our sketch, would be from the halfway point down to the chin. If you take another mark that's halfway down, which really is like 3/4 down, you could say that would be the tip of the nose. Now, if I did that to my face, I would be giving myself a much longer nose than I really have. So that would only work for some people, of course, to have the tip of the nose right there. So I'm going to kind of come away from that generic proportion, because in real life, if you look at my face here, you can tell that from the midway point of my eyes down to my chin, the halfway point is like way below my own real nose. I have a little bit shorter nose, so I'm going to up it a little bit. And I'll just kind of place a little bit of a soft V kind of mark right there to kind of see if that looks a little bit more accurate for me. And I can go ahead and even make little curves for the wings of my nose off to the side, like that. Now let's see. The wings of the nose generically would be if I took a guideline straight down from the corners, inside corner of my eyes down, inside corner of this eye down, just like I have on the sketch. That kind of traps the widest point of your nose right there. Here down, here down. Of course, that's just speaking in real basic terms. Now the nostrils aren't going to be very round. They're going to be kind of foreshortened, kind of flattened out, kind of cut across there. Just kind of place that. Now on my mouth, a smiling mouth is much more challenging. I probably should have got one that was a little bit more relaxed. Now the one in our sketch here does show that if I come about a quarter up from the chin, quarter up as in a portion of, from the bottom half, you could say I could get my lips above that. But I'd say just go from your mirror that you have and also from your reference sheet if you have that with you. And I'm going to start from the center line. Here's my center vertical axis. I'd say work from the center out on both sides. So when I draw my lips, I'm going to give myself space in between the tip of my nose to my lips with a little bit of a cupid's bow, which is like a little curve here, a little indentation, and then a little bit of a soft V, and then kind of work it out to both sides. So I'm coming from the center. I'm just kind of judging the thickness of my lips. Now, of course, you should look at yourself because this reference picture is, of course, smaller than real life. I had to think larger and look at my own face. And I'm not even going to worry about the sides very much. My bottom lip is typically thicker. Now, I have a lot of teeth showing, so I'm going to kind of skip a gap there and make a thicker lip here, and then just kind of bring it out. So remember, sketch lightly at home, okay? Now, how far out? Well, the sides of your lips, if you took a vertical line straight down from the pupils, here, and then on this side from here, that would be a relaxed smile, kind of the furthest out you would probably go. Now, if you're really smiling, it could stretch out more, of course. So I could kind of bring it out like that. Don't worry about teeth, don't worry about eyelashes, none of that. Now, let's jump way up here to the brow bone area. And there is an orbital socket, like an eye socket. And there, I know it would look really weird if I drew this circle, but there is actually, like if you had dark circles under your eyes, it would kind of follow that. But then a little bit inside of the corners of my eyes, you may see the narrowest part of your nose, so you can suggest that with little curves, which feeds right into the brow bone area. I'll try to make myself draw a little darker so you can see it. I'm not used to sketching so hard. And of course, look at your own eyebrows. If they have an arch, try to mimic that. The arch would usually, or the widest part would usually be about at a 45-degree angle from the outer corner of your eye out. Same thing here, out. And of course, everybody's is different. Some of mine is getting kind of covered up. Now, my eyes are all squinty because I was smiling, so my cheeks were pushing up into my eyes. So of course, you can personalize it. Like you'll have eyelids that may cross over the irises. Now, your pupil will always be centered inside of your iris. So wherever your iris goes, which is the colored part of your eye, of course, hence your pupil will go with it. So I'm kind of just pushing my eyes up a little bit there, kind of crossing over them. Of course, you can go a little bit more detailed with it, kind of go from there. If your ears show, your ears are probably larger than you think. So if you go by our old practice sketch, you may notice that the top part of your ear pretty much lines up with the top part of your eye. Now, you don't really see mine very much, but they're barely there. But let's just put it in anyway. Top of the eye, that could be where the highest part of your ear reaches up to. So I'll go ahead and do that. Curve it up to that. And then the tip of your nose, bring out a guideline. And let's say the earlobe might reach as low as that, hit it, and then come back into the head. And I'll just kind of fill in the rest of it like that. Now, you can barely see mine, has an earring coming out of it, but that's a start. People's ears are typically a lot longer than you think, okay? Some of it's just kind of hidden with hair and things like that. The only other thing I'll add here would be, like if you're doing a neckline, hopefully you can see some of it. No, don't give it a pencil neck, it's really narrow. It typically comes out about where your jaw is, or right under where your ear is. It might come in a little bit. But just kind of start it coming down on both sides, real slightly, and it does kind of flare out. And I usually bring it down a little bit. Now I know you can't see mine, but then I'll bring a shoulder that comes out from behind, just to kind of start it. And then maybe the only other thing I'll add in here is I'll mention the forehead. The forehead, I know it looks like a lot because there's no hair. About, if you're considering the top section, about a third of the way down, or the top half, would be about the hairline. I'll just kind of mark that. Now, I have bangs, of course, so don't worry about drawing hair, but just be really aware that the hairline comes down below the skull, about a third of the way down to that halfway point of the skull. Okay, and of course, I know I'm missing a lot of items here. Here's one I did in class for the kids, and that's going to eventually be, you know, the portrait. Okay, so I will stop right there and let you get kind of caught up. Okay.